So here's a very strange article comparing, of all things, Cowboy Bebop, one of the greatest animes ever, to The Last of Us 2, which I don't know what the similarities are going to be here in this article. It's very strange to me. If you just think of it on a cursory glance, it's like, okay, well, Ellie doesn't get her revenge. Apparently, she gets over her past and then she lives, whereas Spike does get his revenge, can't get over his past, and dies. Now, that all occurs within I think, the second to last episodes of Cowboy Bebop, so it's not an ongoing plot with Spike, whereas the entire plot of Ellie is to get Abby. There's other things like maybe the flashback of Joel at the end while trying to kill Abby, but she ends up not killing Abby, whereas Spike gets a flashback of Julia after killing Vicious, but then he just dies. So that's about as close as it gets. That's the similarities I can see. There's not much else. So I don't know where this person is coming from. I can't wrap my brain around it. So let's just see what he has to say. Equally complicated. I'm sorry. There's some depth to Cowboy Bebop. It's certainly there. It's not a lot of depth, but there's just enough to make you think. Go, huh, wow, what was really going on there? I don't think there's that much depth to The Last of Us. It's really not that complicated. In fact, it's very obvious what's going on. So I don't know how we're going to compare these two very different art styles and storytelling styles. Bebop is very succinct in its episodes, but very loose and unconnected with its overarching plot. If you notice, there's maybe only one or two episodes dedicated to each main character and their plots. The rest of the Cowboy Bebop, the 26 episodes, is just fun and entertaining, sometimes dark, sometimes moody, sometimes serious, sometimes war stories. It's all kinds of random stuff. It's pure entertainment. And they know how to make a tight script within a single episode, but not within an overarching plot. If it were, the stories would probably be, or the whole series would probably only be like 12 episodes maybe. It'd be a lot more focused, but it wouldn't be the same product. It wouldn't be the same experience. So maybe that's to his benefit. Who knows? So on the surface, Last of Us and Cowboy couldn't be more different. One is survival horror video game, and the other Japanese anime about space bounty hunters. Now, here we're comparing a genre of survival horror, which implies content, and here we're actually comparing a theme where it's about space bounty hunters. Whenever you say something is about something, you're implying the theme. So we're not exactly doing apples to oranges here. So I don't know why they're even bothering with this. Basic premise aside, this is not the premise. This is the genre versus content. The former is also more violent. The surplus of excessive violent scenes, yes, that would be content. That would be a theme, the theme of violence or death or murder. With the surplus of excessively violent scenes that made The Walking Dead look pedestrian by contrast. Okay. Even the music choices are drastically different. Yes. And I would have to say Bebop and Yoko Kanno are leagues above whoever the musician was in The Last of Us Part 2. Not to say they're bad, just to say these are totally different things. So they are each more deceptively complex than they initially led on. The Last of Us gets touted largely as a revenge story, because it is, while Cowboy Bebop is more of a spontaneous adventure series following an unlikely mixture of crew members. Sure, but there's so much more than that. Okay, in fact, they're both so complicated that it's a disservice to view them as anything less than that. I don't know. I think you could say Cowboy Bebop is a spontaneous adventure series. Sure. It's much more than that, but that's a good way of putting it. Whereas The Last of Us is supposed to be a revenge story. It ends up not being one. We're not sure what the hell it became. So The Last of Us, while centralized around hatred and revenge, that's true, is also about consequences, forgiveness, and even religion. Consequences, yes. For Abby's story. Actually, both stories. Forgiveness, no. I can't. Who forgives who? Where does forgiveness happen in the story? Does Mel forgive Abby? Does Owen where's the forgiveness? Who's forgiving who? The whole story is about murder, death, and revenge. I guess you could say saving some kids might be part of it, but that's not forgiveness. I'm not sure what that is. They never made it clear. I don't know why Abby's behaving the way she's doing. That's a problem with the story, at least Abby's through line. Cowboy Bebop, on the other hand, deals with nihilism, revenge, shades of environmental politics. Every episode is really different. Sometimes it's a noir, sometimes it's a war story. There's all sorts of cool stuff in there. You could conceivably talk about all these respective aspects for hours. They both mean different things, yada yada. The theme that stuck out to me, that has stayed with me for as far as I expected, is the idea that the past and how it defines us, especially in the ending. Okay, that's interesting. Yes, there's plenty of stories where you cannot escape your past, especially in Cowboy Bebop. All the characters are like that. Ed finds her past. She finds her father again. She joins up with him. Faye finds her past. There's nothing left for her. All she has left is the Bebop. Spike finds his past. There's nothing left for him to hold on to. He lets it go. In fact, that's one of the few, not the very last conversation between Spike and Jet, where they talk about. Actually, it's a story by Hemingway. He's telling Spike there's this story about a man he's flying over Kilimanjaro, and he's desperately trying to hold on to what life meant to him, what he left behind, which is a Hemingway story. In case you didn't know, the writers of Bebop are actually well read. They know how to coin a phrase, they know how to coin a story. And if you weren't aware of that, that's fine. You didn't have to know all these references. They didn't have to spell it out for you. That's what's great about Bebop. They don't spell it out to you. But they are done by people who know how to write. So basically, Jet just tells the story of the snows of Kilimanjaro. And Spike's like, you know what? There's this woman I met. And there's a piece of me in her. I can't let go. I thought she was the most truly alive person I ever met. He's still in love with Julia. He can't let her go. So the past is not always some violent thing. In Spike's case, there's lots of violence with the syndicate and his job as a mobster or what have you, his life as a mobster. But there's also Julia. And that's what he can't let go of. He can't let go of Julia the same way Ellie can't let go of Joel. The difference is Julia's alive, okay? And the person who died wasn't Julia. The person who died was Spike. Little more interesting on the Cowboy Bebop premise there. So it's not really the same. In fact, quite the opposite. This would please on deaf ears. The final acts of these stories both center around our main characters, yes, going on one last crusade. Ellie has been going on her crusade the entire time. Spike has been trying to get by and suddenly is aware that Julia's still alive. And he goes after her. Ellie, unable to come to grips with the people she's lost due to Abby's actions, ignores the sentiment of her partner to go on one last spree of vengeance. That's because she can't. It's not Dina telling her what to do. It's her own mind, her own conscience saying, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I have to solve this problem. Spike, who we see throughout the series, is incapable of getting over his past, ignores Faye's pleas. That's like one scene in episode 26. The whole story is not about that. The whole story of Ellie is to get revenge. She tries to get it, she fails, she goes back home, and then she realizes, no, I got to keep trying. And then what's going to happen when she comes back to the farm? She's going to keep trying because she can't eat, she can't sleep. The same problem. A flashback is not going to do it for her. And if it does, then what a ridiculous waste of time this all. Try number 3. Ellie's going to have revenge story number 3. in The Last of Us Part 3, because that's all she is. Instead, he leaves the safety of the Bebop in order to exact revenge against Vicious and the Red Dragon Syndicate for everything that they've done, and especially for what happened to Julia. Oh, so he has reasons. Spike has actual motivation. He has multiple motivations. Julia got killed by the Syndicate. He's off to get revenge over her death, as well as Annie's death and all the stuff that's been happening to him over the years. In the end, both characters have their desires met. No, they don't. Ellie has her chance with Abby to resolve things, and she doesn't take it for reasons. While Spike does manage to kill Vicious and put an end to the Red Dragon Syndicate schemes, but at what cost? That's the whole point. It's this story. Ellie left the quiet, peaceful life she had with Dina and the daughter they were raising together, ending up alone. Spike presumably dies. Yes, he does, having been unable to start a new life with the Bebop crew. This is really stretching it. This is not. So you're trying to tell me the exact opposite happens in Bebop and Ellie's story? Oh, just come on. It's like we watch two different shows. It's like, yeah, the exact opposite happens with Spike in comparison to Ellie. Fantastic. Great comparison there, Nerdist. When the personalities of the two protagonists are completely different, the endings of them feel eerily similar. No, they don't. As I just explained at the start of this, it's the kind of ending that sticks with you. You can't quantify the decisions as simply right or wrong. Really? You can't figure out what is right in Spike's mind, what's right in Ellie's mind. At the ending, we can't quantify it because it doesn't make any goddamn sense. But with Spike, it all makes sense. We know exactly what's going through his mind. Even Julia's like, why are you putting all these guns? This is not, you don't need all that weaponry to run away. And then she realizes what he's doing. He's like, oh, well, if that's the case, I'm coming with you. She's on board. She knows what's going on. She's been in that life before as well. She wants to take care of things too with Spike because Spike made the choice. Ellie makes the choice not to kill Abby, and we don't know why. It doesn't make sense. Perhaps it's best summarized as one of Steve Rogers in the Avengers Endgame. Some people move on, but not us. Okay. Unable to let go. Yes, this is the point of a revenge story. You can't let go of the wrong that was committed. You have to make things right. It's a surreal experience to see these two characters I love struggle with that same thing I struggle with, letting go and overcoming. Wow, it sounds like it's a human component. It makes sense. It resonates with you. And yet Ellie can let go just because flashback is a thing. I don't know. These are people. There are people who are family that I would rather not bestow with that honor, so I don't. I have trouble coming to grips with my family. All right, so it's personal, yada, yada, yada. I think our past, our heritage, and the mistakes we make along the way is something that which we actually all struggle. Most of us, I like to imagine, are able to come to peace with those things in time. We grow, adapt, and move on. Okay, but what makes The Last of Us and Cowboy Bebop so special is that it shows us what happens when we don't. Sometimes people can't just let whatever happens happen. That's it? That's your comparison between the two. That people can't let go of their past. Everything that happens in the past is the past. That's true. For a revenge story, for a love story, it's the same thing. Yeah, it happened in your past. You can't. What a beautiful woman. I can't let go of her. Oh, she's dead. I have to seek revenge now. Okay. There's a rivalry between Spike and Vicious throughout his past and throughout the stories. Vicious ends up killing all the elders. His friend Annie, Lynn gets killed as a result. Lynn's brother got killed before. There's lots of blood between Vicious and Spike. I guess there's a good comparison. There's lots of blood between Ellie and Abby. That's true. But we're talking about one big dysfunctional family in the syndicate and the friends and lovers along the way. whereas with Ellie and Abby, it's two groups. But this comparison is pretty weak. I mean, to even try to compare it to Cowboy Bebop is sad. That is really reaching. Oh, it's such a memorable experience, like Bebop. Therefore, it's similar. Oh, look, there's a story of revenge for like the last episode. Whereas the entire plot of Ellie's is revenge. A little bit different there. Completely different art forms, completely different art styles. Some of the writers know what the hell they're doing. Some of them on the other side of the product don't. So this was pretty sad for me to read that someone is trying to make this comparison without actually understanding, at least in detail, what the hell they're talking about. Thanks for listening, folks. Hope you're having a great day.